Hey, everybody. It is Friday, July 11th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast on this 7/11/25. I'm Moshe Wanunu.
And I am Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. Jill, since it's 7/11 today.
Go get a Slurpee.
You have free Slurpees at 7-Eleven. They have a whole bunch of freebies there, but free Slurpees, if there's 7-Eleven near you, that's a thing they do, obviously, on 7-Eleven here in the U.S. But apparently this year they also are offering what they call tongue tattoos at select stores. These are apparently temporary tongue tattoos activated by Slurpee. So literally your tongue turns blue, green, red, purple. I feel like this is like very big in the sort of under 12 crowd.
My daughter would be all over it.
Yeah, like all over it. Like if you show up to work today with a tongue tattoo, people are like, what is going on with you? But your kids probably love it. So a lot of fun things happening over at 7-Eleven. There's about 8,000 of them around America.
Moshe, I have a 7-Eleven baby. My son turning 3 today.
Happy birthday, Grayson.
He doesn't listen. But if he was to listen, he would say, thank you. Thank you, Moshe.
He could listen to this portion of the podcast. You could just play me saying happy birthday. I think, a 3-year-old boy has attention for like 3 seconds, 4 seconds?
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to some headlines here, starting with the much-watched New York City mayoral race. The current mayor and independent candidate Eric Adams sat down with Mo News, how he plans to win over voters from the current frontrunner, Zohran Mamdani, as we get some new poll numbers, and Mamdani picks up some key endorsements.
It's a very interesting conversation. We'll bring you a bit of it in today's pod. Of course, we put out the full conversation yesterday afternoon. It's a very packed race for mayor of America's largest city right now with some interesting dynamics playing out, Jill.
President Trump heading to Texas today to survey the flood damage, where things stand in the search for more victims. In a blow to Trump's agenda, a judge blocks the president's Birthright citizenship order, where things stand.
This is the issue that's come before the court several times. The Supreme Court ruled on it recently, and now you have the lower courts reacting to the Supreme Court. We'll break it down for you.
Overseas, what we're learning about Iran's nuclear capabilities a couple of weeks after Israel and the United States attacked its top nuclear enrichment sites.
Yeah, we told you more intelligence estimates would be coming. We just got one.
To business news, a major deal in the food world. Could you say Nutella Frosted Flakes? Delicious, by the way.
A lot. That was something we were talking about in the office yesterday. That's why I made it the headline over on Instagram. There's a lot of potential combos here with dozens of brands you're very familiar with, now all being part of the same family.
And staying with food and drinks, don't spit out your coffee if you're drinking some right now. Coffee prices are climbing. We'll tell you why.
Savor it and finish it, folks.
And a plan to make it easier to cancel gym memberships and the like, blocked by an appeals court. We'll tell you what this is about.
Yeah, all of us frustrated. Equinox celebrating.
And it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend, what we are watching, reading, and eating. With a special shout out to the Mo News premium Slack channel for a ton of amazing ideas.
A lot of great ideas over there on the Slacks. We're about to hit 2,500 over there as we head into the weekend. And the conversations are popping, and we've created some new rooms over there over on the premium Slack channel, Jill.
Okay, let's start with the New York City mayoral race and our interview with the current New York City mayor, Eric Adams. He is a Democrat who has been running the nation's largest city for the last 3.5 years. He is running in the general election as an independent. Adams sat out the primary earlier this year amid low approval numbers in the wake of multiple controversies. The most recent poll shows that the frontrunner in the general election is the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani. With 35% of registered voters, Mamdani is the 33-year-old Democratic socialist who seemed to come out of nowhere, beating former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo in the primary by about 12 points. So this recent general election poll shows that if Cuomo does run as an independent, he would still lose to Mamdani with 25% of the vote. The Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa, has 14%. And in fourth place is the current mayor, Eric Adams, at 11%. 13% of respondents said they weren't sure, while 1% picked another candidate. But Moshe, Adams is in it to win it. It is a crowded field, but with so many candidates competing for the middle and the right, Mamdani could become the next mayor with less than 40% of the vote. Not surprisingly, Adams is calling for Cuomo to drop out immediately to prevent an all but guaranteed Mamdani victory. Adams told us Cuomo had his chance in the primary and failed.
Yeah, these guys do not like each other. And Cuomo's like, Adams, get out. Give me my shot. And Adams like, you've had your shot. And you're done. You spent $30 million. You didn't really run in the primary. Like, you're done. What's interesting, Jill, is you broke down those polling numbers. So Mamdani's at 35. And this is just one poll. And there's going to be a lot of polls. And we'll see how it evolves over the summer and the fall. But Mamdani right now is at 35. And as you noted, Cuomo's at 25. And Adams is at 11. Well, given that they're pretty similar policy-wise, add 11 and 25, you get 36 to Mamdani's 35. So basically, Adams plus Cuomo greater than Mamdani. If you look at the race right now, and you probably could say that Sliwa, the Republican, is probably peaking out at 14. I would imagine some of those people will trail off into the Cuomo or Adams corner as they try to, prevent Mamdani, who's, very progressive and very much on the left, from becoming mayor. So that's the really storyline. One of the storylines that we talked about with Adams this week that we'll be watching for, which is who's going to get the other to drop out. Here's a bit of what Eric Adams told me about Cuomo.
He needs to get out the race. He had his chance. He spent $25 million, didn't get out and campaign, took New Yorkers for granted, thought that he could just use his name and become the candidate. He never wanted to be mayor. He would not have even run for mayor if it wasn't for the fact he succumbed to the far left of our party and decided not to stand up if he felt he did nothing wrong. And this is a byproduct of it.
My question to you is, if we're in the fall and it's still, you're still trailing Cuomo, is there a scenario? Do you think it is so important to prevent Zoran Mamdani from being mayor that you would get out of the race to consolidate support?
I will hope that people would think it's so important for him not to be mayor that Governor Cuomo, they would speak with him and say, you had your chance to run against Mamdani. You lost.
And so the conversation went, me asking Adams, like, well, what if in the fall you're still trailing and you're in third or fourth place? He's like, well, I hope at that point people will still tell Andrew Cuomo to get out. So it doesn't look like Adams is going to get out here. One interesting thing, Jill, that Adams brought up, and he sort of indicated that he believes that Cuomo targets Black politicians. And it'll be interesting to see here how he brings up the idea of race into the race. He went through a list of Black politicians that Cuomo ran against, basically implying that Cuomo prevents and blocks Black politicians from getting into the highest offices in the land, that he pressured the New York's first Black governor, David Paterson, not to seek re-election, that he hurt some other politicians as well in their attempts. So that was very interesting, hearing Adams go in that direction. Obviously, Black voters make up a huge constituency here in New York.
But Moshe, as of this moment, it is a tough sell for Adams to be telling Cuomo to get out of the race when Cuomo is actually polling so much better than Adams right now. We did get a lot of comments, by the way, just asking how this interview came about, whether you're trying to interview the other candidates as well. The answer is yes. We have calls out to the Mamdani campaigns, Cuomo, Sliwa as well. Now, in terms of Adams, his team had reached out to you directly immediately after Mamdani won the primary. In fact, we had just wrapped up a podcast and you're like, wait a minute, it's Eric Adams' team calling. But perhaps it is an acknowledgement that the old way of campaigning, simply running TV ads, not going to cut it anymore.
Well, you know who found that out in the spring? Andrew Cuomo, who basically you couldn't turn on TV in New York without seeing an Andrew Cuomo ad. And the man just kept going down and down and down further in the polls. So you are seeing, you probably, as you scroll social media, are going to be seeing Eric Adams on a number of podcasts, a number of new media outlets. One of the reasons that he came to us at Mo News. And who are they looking to for an example here? Well, Zoran Mamdani, who very much won over young voters on the issues, but also the way that he campaigned, the platforms that he campaigned on. He's got a huge following on social media. And so the rest of the candidates here are taking note of that. One of the issues that Adams faces is he's extremely unpopular right now. A majority of New Yorkers have an unfavorable opinion of him. That is also something I asked him about yesterday. I'm like, dude, you effectively have a 28% favorability rating. And he's like, well, that's because New Yorkers don't know their mayor. One of the issues he faces is a trust issue. The indictment that came down last fall. This was the 5-count criminal indictment related to corruption, basically getting favors from the Turkish government. Now, those charges were dropped in February, but they did take a major toll on his popularity, on his approval, and on New Yorkers and whether they trust him. Also, the way that it was dropped by the Trump administration, their Justice Department basically just dropping it. Some people resigned over it because they're dropping it because it feels like a quid pro quo. I asked him, I was like, did you make a deal with Trump? He goes, no, I did not make a deal with Trump. So that's what he told us, for what it's worth. And he's like, if you actually read the indictment, he's like, look at the charges. Look at what they're trying to send me to prison on. It was a bunch of what he called lawfare, which is also the term Trump uses for these charges that he faced during the Biden administration from their Justice Department. And so ultimately, they now view this as an opportunity, the Adams campaign does, to sort of reintroduce him to New Yorkers, and he wants to run on the issues. He's like, I said to him yesterday, the question we often ask presidents is, are we better off than we were 4 years ago? Is New York better off than we were 4 years ago? And he's like, on the numbers, Moshe, yes. Look at the economy. Look at crime is down, and that's something he's really pushing. Violent crime is down. We talked about that on yesterday's podcast. The murder rate is the lowest in decades here in New York. He touted this the safest big city. Here's a bit of what he had to say about that.
New Yorkers have not really heard the story of how far we've come. COVID, recycled out of that. 237,000 migrants and asylum seekers, recycled out of that. 22,000 legal guns off our streets. Our job numbers, our recovery of our hotel industry. We have a real record of success.
But they're still feeling the price of everything.
But the question becomes, I think nothing is more horrific than when you are dealing with poverty and affordability and someone is telling you promises that they can't live up to. He cannot give free buses. It costs $3 billion. He said he's going to raise their taxes. Mayors don't have the authority to raise the taxes.
Right, you need the state to do that. So that's his argument there. Basically, he did a bunch of stuff. Mamdani's never done anything, and Mamdani's making a bunch of promises that he can't keep. He called Mamdani an elitist. He said that Mamdani studied poverty. Adam said, I live poverty. He had a silver spoon. I had a wooden spoon, and that wooden spoon didn't have food some of the time. And so that's a bit of the dynamic, that you can already see how this campaign is going to play out in the fall.
Moshe, did anything else really stand out to you from your conversation with Adams? I know that he raised questions about Mamdani's statements and policies toward Israel. Important to note, New York has the biggest population of Jews outside of Israel.
Yeah, 1 million plus Jews in New York City. And that's a huge constituency that Adams is looking to gain support in. Remember, Mamdani grew up a pro-Palestine activist. He was one on campus. That has been a big issue for him. And at times has been very vocal about his criticism for Israel, his saying, effectively, he's been asked about this multiple times, but he won't condemn the phrase globalize the intifada, which means literally struggle, but it has been defined by the recent intifadas, by the Palestinian intifadas, with a lot of violence towards Israelis and towards Jews. And so ultimately here, there's a lot of Jews in the area who are concerned about that. Adams is saying that, he listens and he's an ally. And, he believes that, Mamdani has gone too far with some of the things that he said, including that Mamdani has said that he would arrest the Israeli prime minister if he was in New York based on the arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court. Now, remember that the U.S. is not party to the International Criminal Court. We're one of the countries that's not in it. And so I said, can you even do that? And he's like, no, I can't have the NYPD arrest a foreign leader while he's here. So that's certainly another one of the storylines that is playing. I mean, remember, New York, nearly 9 million people. So there's just a lot of threads here that will speak to the Black community, the Puerto Rican community, all the various immigrant communities, the Jewish community. And so when you're mayor of New York, you're mayor of all these constituencies. And so as you're running for election citywide, you're thinking about your vote in the Korean community, the Chinese community, et cetera. And so different issues will play significantly in each of those communities.
And he faces an uphill climb. On Thursday, Mamdani was endorsed by Representative Adriano Espaillat, the city's most powerful Latino leader and one of the most influential among voters. He is the latest member of New York's congressional delegation to back Mamdani. Notably, Jerry Nadler and Nydia Velasquez already have. The House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and Senator Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, both have not endorsed anyone yet, although the pressure, especially from progressives, is mounting.
Yeah, remember, Mamdani is the Democratic nominee for mayor, so in a typical year, all these people would have endorsed him the moment that he won. But given some of his views, and given that he's a Democratic socialist, and given how critical he is of the Democratic Party, you do have some of the more prominent Dems who have not come out there. So it's just notable how much influence New York has nationally, because you mentioned there Jeffries, the House Minority Leader from New York, Schumer, Senate Minority Leader from New York, and they haven't come out there. And, they've had relatively good relations with Adams, but not so good because then there was the indictment. So it's a complicated situation in New York City for some of these folks. One of the things, by the way, I asked Adams about was, what's your relationship like with Trump? Like, what's going on there? And he's like, it's the same as it was with Biden. And I get in it, and that's interesting given that he's a Democrat, but he says that, he has to represent New Yorkers, and that means working with the president. And remember that Mamdani has promised a much more adversarial relationship with Trump. And, one of the things we talked about too was the migrant issue and immigration. I said, listen, we've been watching what's unfolding in LA. Is that going to happen here? And he's like, no, it hasn't, and it won't, because I will cooperate to a certain extent. And again, Mamdani's been saying ICE is not welcome here. We will not cooperate on anything. And Adams is like, no, I will cooperate when it comes to criminals. If people have committed violent crimes, I will work with ICE to ensure that they're deported. So it's going to make for a really interesting dynamic. It's a very crowded field, and we're the center of it here. And it was very cool to have Mayor Adams inside the Mo News podcast studio yesterday.
Yes, and if you haven't listened to the full interview, I recommend it. Great job, Moshe.
Thanks, Jill. By the way, one of my first questions was, for people who live outside New York, why should they care about this race? So how does the New York City mayor matter? And he actually had an answer to that as well. So
yes, invoking a little presidential history in his answer.
We went back to the 70s.
Okay, now to Texas. President Trump headed to the region today. He's expected to visit the site of those deadly floods in central Texas. It has already been a full week since those torrential rains caused devastating flash floods in Texas Hill Country. Rescue teams are continuing their search for more than 150 missing victims. At least 120 people have been found dead. 95 were from Kerr County, which is the hardest hit area, which includes the devastated Christian girls camp, Camp Mystic.
Yeah, Joe, there's more than 2,000 responders in the region, so much debris to go through. And obviously, as the days go on here, there's a lot of concern of how many of those who are still missing will end up potentially being found alive somewhere, maybe out of communication, or sadly might be part of the death toll. We will be watching that visit of the president's later today, and we'll have the latest for you on the Instagram feed.
Time for the speed read from Mo News. A federal judge blocked President Trump's executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship on Thursday, about 2 weeks after the Supreme Court limited the use of nationwide injunctions, the tool that was first used to pause the order. Immigrants' rights attorneys made a new move to block the order after the Supreme Court ruling asking the court to certify a class of individuals and issue a preliminary injunction, which is a legal pause. The Supreme Court had mentioned the class action route as a viable option for litigants in their ruling. In class action lawsuits, a court must approve, quote, class representatives to stand in for the broader group. The proposed class includes all current and future children who would be affected by this policy. It initially sought to include their parents as well. More than 250,000 children are born in the United States each year and gain citizenship through the 14th Amendment, which guarantees citizenship to anybody born on U.S. soil.
Yeah, the 14th Amendment came out of the Civil War to ensure that all the new freed slaves would be considered U.S. citizens, because at the time, many states didn't consider Black Americans to be citizens. Now, what Trump and his administration are trying to say is that that shouldn't apply to anyone who is here on a tourist visa or is undocumented who has a child here, because until now, the 14th Amendment has been interpreted to mean if you are born here, no matter the circumstances your parents came here, you are a citizen of the United States. Now, what's particularly concerning is that if this executive order went into effect, that would mean immediately thereafter, depending on how they implement this, people born here, if their parents are here on a tourist visa or a student visa or, have some sort of temporary work status, that those kids would not be American citizens, but also what would they be citizens of if potentially they have an issue with their country? So it would create some countryless individuals. And there's a question, given what he's trying to do here, as to whether he needs a law or even a constitutional amendment to change the 14th Amendment here. You can't just do it via executive order. So a lot of legal questions here. Remember, there were these injunctions. The Supreme Court said there's too many injunctions. You can't just do injunctions and everything. So now the judges are using the class action route, it appears, at least in this case. And this judge, by the way, was a George W. Bush appointee, so a conservative judge who agreed here that this needs to be frozen for now until they figure out the ramifications of this because of the implications here, again, about, moving forward, you'll have this class of citizenless babies. And what do you do about that?
To the Middle East now, from the New York Times, Israel has concluded that some of Iran's underground stockpile of near-bomb-grade enriched uranium survived American and Israeli attacks last month and could be accessible to Iranian nuclear engineers. The senior official also saying that Israel had started to move toward military action against Iran late last year after seeing what the official described as a race to build a bomb as part of a secret Iranian project. The official spoke on the condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the information. The official saying that Israeli intelligence had picked up nuclear weapons activity soon after the Israeli Air Force killed Hassan Nasrallah, who was the longtime leader of Hezbollah, Hezbollah being the Iran-backed proxy group in Lebanon. So that observation is what prompted Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to prepare for an attack with or without U.S. help.
Yeah, the sense from the Israelis was Iran was sort of getting freaked out by what was going on and decided to up their uranium enrichment and get ready to be as close as they could to nuclear weapons, because then once they pulled the trigger, deciding whether to go with nuclear weapons, it was going to just be a matter of weeks and at the longest estimate, several months. But their concern was they wouldn't know when the Iranians would pull the trigger. So they decided to move ahead, as we know, last month with the attack on the Iranian supply. Israeli officials did briefings for reporters yesterday, and they said that while some of the uranium still remains there, they're not concerned about it. Why? Because they have effective detection right now of the sites. So if Islamic regime officials go to recover that supply, it sounds like the Israelis would hit them. And so they believe, like, okay, some of it survived, but they've lost all their facilities and they need all this equipment. And they also need to go to the site and dig it out. And that's something it sounds like the Israelis will not let happen. They're looking to keep their win so far and ensure the Iranians don't get any closer. So ultimately, that's one assessment. Also, the Israelis differ from the assessment we heard recently from the IAEA, the UN agency. They said they had believed, the UN did, that the Iranians had moved some of the uranium to another place. The Israelis are like, no, it's still there. It's buried in the ground. Some of it survived. But again, as far as the Israelis are concerned, they're not going to let the regime get close to it again.
All right, to a big business deal from the Wall Street Journal. The Italian candy maker behind Ferrero Rocher and Nutella struck a roughly $3 billion deal to buy the iconic cereal company WK Kellogg in a bid to bolster its business in North America. The deal would combine two storied consumer food makers from both sides of the Atlantic. WK Kellogg's the company behind Froot Loops, Frosted Flakes, Rice Krispies, and a variety of other cereals. It was Kellogg's founder, Will Keith Kellogg, who actually invented Corn Flakes back in 1894, and it led to the business's formation in the early 20th century. The story goes that the wheat-based cereal was actually created as an accident, but it would go on to revolutionize the breakfast food industry.
Jill, at the time in the 19th century, we lived like terribly unhealthy lives. And so the Kellogg brothers, Dr. Kellogg, creates cornflakes and some of these cereals as he sees as basically like a health regimen. He's like, I'm going to prescribe you cereal for your diet for all these stomach ailments because people are eating undercooked meat, just terrible stuff. We talked yesterday about poopy water right in the White House, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good what we were eating. And so literally, he's like creating granola, some stuff that we take for granted today, but they were like, no, this is like medical grade cornflakes. Like this will help you with your bellies. In fact, the Kellogg brothers had a whole dispute because one of the Kellogg's was like, we're a doctor. This is this is to help people at what we call the Battle Creek Sanitarium. The other brother's like, we could sell this stuff and like make a lot of money. And so they had a whole falling out. They had like a decade-long lawsuit. This is actually the subject of a great book, Jill, about the Kellogg brothers, and like, how modern cereal came about. But one of the Kellogg's was like, we can't make money off of this. Like, I'm a doctor and, this is about helping people. And the other brother's like, no, we're going to make mad money off of this. That brother won out.
Okay, Moshe, so I correctly included a little bit of the history because I knew you're obsessed with it. I feel like you are obsessed with cereal history, something I learned about you just through many discussions over the years.
Among many things, Jill. Anyway, the book, by the way, is called The Kellogg's. So if you're looking for a good read, definitely check it out.
All right. And then there is Ferrero, founded about 80 years ago in Italy. That company has expanded internationally to become the world's third largest chocolate company with about 35 brands sold in more than 170 countries, including Butterfinger, Baby Ruth, Kinder, and of course, its namesake chocolate treats.
They have Keebler too, Jill.
The group generated revenue of about $22 billion for its latest financial year, up almost 9% from the prior period, boosted by its operations in the United States and Italy.
Yeah, so they're looking to really build out here in the U.S. They also bought Wells, which owns Blue Bunny, if you're familiar with Blue Bunny, and the various ice cream brands. They also acquired all of Nestle's U.S. business. So Ferrero Rocher, you might know there's like little circular chocolates that like feel very fancy, but that's like the multi-billion-dollar business behind like most of the snacks and chocolate that you might be eating these days. And now many of the cereals in the cereal aisle. WK Kellogg has had various spinoffs in recent years. They spun off their snacking business, Kellanova, and sold that off. And now they're part of the Ferrero empire. And it'll be interesting. Ferrero, has to come into the U.S. in a situation where they're dealing with RFK Jr. and HHS and the various moves that they're making to get certain chemicals out of food. And so they're, going to be a target there of HHS and have to deal with those negotiations. But we've seen a whole bunch of acquisitions in recent years. PepsiCo bought Siete chips, which we love Siete in our house. GM Smuckers acquired Hostess. And recently Hershey's bought Lesser Evil, the healthier popcorn brand.
Staying with the grocery aisle from the Financial Times, coffee futures jumped on Thursday after President Trump threatened 50% tariffs on Brazil, which is the world's biggest producer, jolting the industry and risking a price surge for U.S. consumers. In a letter posted to Truth Social on Wednesday, Trump said that the U.S. would hit Brazil with that steep tariff rate starting on August 1st. And Moshe, this is a bit different than other trade disputes that the United States has had with other countries. This is actually about domestic politics in Brazil. Trump is accusing the country's government of attacking free speech and orchestrating a witch hunt against Brazil's former right-wing president, Bolsonaro.
Yeah, tariffs are like the new sanctions. Like tariff. Like, I don't like what you're doing here. Tariff for you. Tariff for you. Tariff for you. In this case, I don't like that they're investigating my buddy, Jair Bolsonaro. I think that the case against him is nonsense. And so Trump's been saying to the new leader there in Brazil, drop the case, drop the case. If you don't drop the case by the end of the month, I'm putting 50% tariffs on Brazil. So yes, not about the trade policies of Brazil. In fact, we have a surplus with Brazil, the U.S. does, but more about the Bolsonaro investigation, criminal investigation. The thing about Bolsonaro, he is very friendly with Trump. He's been to Mar-a-Lago a lot. They really like each other. And he very much is similar to Trump in his campaign. He said, if I lose, it's corruption. And then a bunch of his supporters staged their own January 6th style riot on government buildings there in Brazil. There are questions about whether Bolsonaro actually knew of a plot to assassinate his rival Lula, who won the election. And by the way, this is not only a Brazil thing. Trump is also getting involved on behalf of his buddy Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. Netanyahu is facing his own corruption investigations. And of late, Trump has been putting out messages saying, hey, I don't know if Israel will continue to get the military aid they get if you continue investigating my friend Netanyahu. You better drop those charges, Israeli courts. So we have seen two prominent examples of this in recent weeks from Trump in Israel and in Brazil. And I should note, going back to Brazil, Brazil is a very messy place. Lula, who's the current president, he used to be the president till 2010. Then he had his own corruption investigation. He went to jail for 1.5 years. That was eventually dropped. During that time, he was banned from running for re-election. Then he was allowed to run for re-election. Who did he run against? Bolsonaro. He beats Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro does his old January 6th style thing. Now he's under investigation, criminal indictment. He's banned from running again. So it's messy in Brazil. But Trump is really ratcheting things up because they're facing another election and he wants Bolsonaro to be able to run again.
Back to coffee.
Oh, yeah. That's where we started.
So Brazil's the world's top producer of Arabica coffee, which is used in the higher end brews. So those coffee prices were trading about 2.5% higher on Thursday. And the U.S., by the way, is Brazil's main coffee buyer.
Yes, we have a little bit of coffee we make in Hawaii and Puerto Rico. But for the most part, we are one of the largest consumers of coffee in the world. And we depend on other countries for it. So, of course, as Trump plays out these politics right now with the Brazilians, ultimately, it could mean higher prices for coffee. Also, acai, a lot of that comes from Brazil as well. And so we'll see what happens. But coffee in particular has been seeing increased prices because you've also had a couple other areas that produce a lot of coffee dealing with drought and other sort of climate change related issues, including Vietnam. So there's a hope here that if he does move ahead with tariffs, that there's a carve out for coffee ahead of August 1st. We shall watch. Otherwise, folks, go stock up on your favorite coffee from Brazil.
And finally, from Reuters, the U.S. Appeals Court blocked a rule that would have required businesses to make it as easy to cancel subscriptions and memberships as it is to sign up, saying that the agency that created it did not follow protocol. The court saying that the FTC, which passed the rule under former Democratic Chair Lina Khan, failed to conduct a preliminary analysis of the costs and benefits of the rule. So that rule was set to take effect on July 14th.
So this rule would have required retailers, gyms, and other businesses to provide cancellation methods for subscriptions, auto renewals, and free trials that convert to paid memberships that are at least as easy to use as the sign-up process. You know, they make it really easy to sign up for things and freaking impossible to cancel things. And so in this case, under the Biden administration, they were trying to do all these consumer-friendly things, and they said, we're going to require them to make it easy to cancel things. Well, it appears here that, the trade groups, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and other organizations have fought back. Warner Brothers, Disney, Charter Communications, Cox Communications, saying, no, this is going to require a lot of work. We can't do this. And it appears right now the Federal Trade Commission has gone back on that. Jill, I'll add one more thing here. Apparently, it's also aimed at making things challenging for us to use AI to cancel things. But that is an interesting way you could use AI if you try to use, ChatGPT or one of the AI functions and say, I need to cancel my X membership. Can you, navigate or go through Reddit to find tips and tricks in order to cancel a membership? AI could help you in the situations, as long as it's not praising Hitler in response. But that's only grok this week. You had to be listening yesterday to get that.
All right, it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Time for what we are watching, reading, and eating. Moshe, what are you watching?
So, Jill, a couple of these picks inspired by your responses to On This Day in History. So this is a real dialogue we have going on with the audience. Remember earlier in the week, it was the anniversary of Catherine the Great taking out her husband to run Russia several hundred years ago. And we were like, oh, it'd be a great TV show. And you guys were all like, Moshe, there is a TV show and it's been on for several seasons. So I am going to start watching The Great over on Hulu. I'm told there are already 3 seasons of it, starring Elle Fanning, Mo News follower Elle Fanning, as Catherine. So I'm excited to watch, folks.
Raunchiness and all.
I'm told it's raunchy. And then some people are like, this person clearly doesn't watch raunch. Yes, okay, but there are raunchier shows than that. But I'll watch it after Olivia goes to bed.
Because she would know exactly what was happening.
She'd be like, what is going on? Put on, she's really obsessed these days with actually people making Play-Doh things on YouTube. You can watch people make ice cream with Play-Doh and cakes out of Play-Doh, and she loves that right now.
No, my son is obsessed with other kids playing with cars. And I'm like, why are you watching this? This is so
Olivia is obsessed with watching other people play with dolls and then taking their dolls, to the pool, taking their dolls, feeding their dolls, and then she then does that with her dolls. And
I just feel better that you're letting Olivia watch YouTube because it's one of the things I feel guilty about, and I'm somewhat surprised that that's going on in your house.
I'll be open about it. Sometimes you need like a 10-minute YouTube break. We're not like at the point like we're at a restaurant and like she's putting an iPhone in front of her. Like we're very much in the conversation in that scenario. But at home, sometimes it's like, okay, you get 10 minutes of YouTube, and then we set an alarm, and then I tell her, I was like, when there's ding, 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 time is up. And then she'll point to it. She's like, ding, ding, ding. I was like, yep, time is up. She gets excited about the ding, ding.
You're preaching to the choir. I get it. I wish we stuck to 10 minutes too.
There we go. Let's try to finish this in the next 10 minutes. Jill, what are you watching?
The Wimbledon finals, the women are playing at 11 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, and American Amanda Anisimova is in the final, so she beat the number one Sablenka in the semis, and if she wins, she'll be the first American woman to win Wimbledon since Serena Williams did it back in 2016. On the men's side, Novak Djokovic, he's still in, but he did fall in his last match. He seems like he's okay, but unclear if he has some type of injury. And also American Taylor Fritz is still in. He is playing Alcaraz, though, today in the semis. So that's going to be a tough match as well. So that's what I am watching. Moshe, what are you reading?
Another suggestion from all of you earlier in the week was the anniversary of President James Garfield being assassinated. Don't know much about him, and people are like, actually, Moshe, there's a fascinating story behind it, and it's all in this book, Destiny of the Republic. So several of you suggested I read Destiny of the Republic to get deep into the James Garfield assassination and his backstory and, what he was promising. And so I'm checking that out as well. So thanks to all of you on the reading Slack thread who presented that to me. And again, that's the latest feature of Mo News Premium. If you're a Mo News Premium member, we now have a community of several thousand people over on Slack. We got a bunch of chat rooms going. And it's actually majority not about news. I mean, there's a whole parenting Slack we launched yesterday, Jill, with people looking for tips on how to deal with like one kid has a stomach flu. And then someone's talking about how to talk to your kids about the news. And so some interesting conversations happening there between various Mo News community members. One other benefit of Mo News Premium is check that out over at mo.news/premium. Jill, what are you reading?
I also picked up a suggestion from the Mo News Slack channel, Sunny Side Up by Katie Storino. According to one of our premium members, this is charming and a fun beach type read, which is exactly what I'm looking for, and a good break from heavier nonfiction picks. Moshe, our favorite topic, what we're eating. What are you eating?
Jill, I don't think I could ever go back to eating eggs over easy, just like simply on a plate. Alex puts it on like a crispy tortilla with like avocado and like some cheese. It's a game changer. Like the egg over easy or over medium, but like on just like a crispy tortilla. Revelation. That's what we'll be having this weekend.
Because you got the crunch.
You got the crunch. You got the crunch. You get some added taste. And then it's so sad. Once I finish the crunch and there's like some egg left over, I was like, oh, this is sad to finish the egg this way without all the accoutrement. Jill, what are you eating?
We're doing a fun Fetty birthday cake. As I mentioned at the top, my son turns 3 today, so we'll be doing that.
Happy birthday, Grayson. Again, you can listen to it at the end of the podcast, too.
All right, everyone, that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Mo News podcast. If you like what you hear, share this with your friends. It helps us grow. Follow us, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store. We'd appreciate it.
See you on Monday.
Thanks for listening to the Mo News podcast. Have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed.